Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is J.R. Moore coming to you live from deep in the mountains of the Missouri Ozarks on Thursday, the 15th day of February, year of our Lord 2018. Welcome to the John Moore Show. The breaking news, of course, is continuing reporting on the tragedy in the high school in Florida yesterday. I have every reason to believe that we will find out, as we have in almost all these cases, except where Muslims are involved, is that psychotropic drugs were being consumed by the perpetrator. Muslims don't need to take psychotropic drugs because they're already crazy. Prepper tip of the day, I want to encourage all of you to work with your pastor to set up a church security program for your church. If you haven't thought about that in a while, well, it's time to think about it. And with that said, we do have a special guest patient waiting in the green room, my friend Tim Spencer. Tim is a husband, a father, a grandfather, a rancher, a veteran United States Navy Submarine Corps, and proprietor of the excellent website, ruralsurvival.info. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, John. How are things going for you this morning?
Well, I'm looking forward to a beautiful late winter, early spring day, sunny. How about yourself, sir?
Well, same thing. In fact, right now I'm sitting on the front porch. It is so beautiful, I couldn't force myself to stay in front of the computer, so I came out here on the porch.
Outstanding. Good for you. I don't know how much you've read about the tragedy in Florida yesterday afternoon, but
I watched it live. The first 2 hours that it was going on, I watched it live on the computer. From literally the minute they started broadcasting, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And as usual, John, everything was convoluted, confused. Nobody knew which end was up.
Right.
Which is understandable in a situation like that. And,
absolutely. Well, one of the things that I ran across was a football coach who had a secondary duty as a security officer inside the school. They give him credit for saving the life of a teenage girl he pushed out of the way through a doorway, giving up his own life in the process.
Oh, man.
And they mentioned him being, I'm going to be a little tongue-in-cheek here, well armed with a 2A radio. Come on,
yeah.
If that football coach had been armed, the outcome had a much greater chance of being far, far different, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely, John. In fact, my daughter and I were talking about that while it was happening. She and I were both agreeing with each other, preaching to the choir type thing, that if just one or two teachers had been armed, it could have been completely different.
Well, obviously.
And of course, my son-in-law and I were talking about it when he got home from work, and we were talking about how sheep-like all these people in the school were. You had 2,900 students, high school students. You have 135 teachers, but just one man with with one gun. Things could have been a whole lot different if somebody had just a little bit of guts. If 3 people had charged that guy, it would have all been over.
Right.
But people don't think like that anymore. Everybody is taught to be sheepish. Go hide. Don't fight back. You got to go hide in the closet.
Right.
And to me, it's irritating.
Well, when I've had employment, when I first got hired as a homicide detective for the state of Missouri, I was prohibited from being armed by my employer, the state of Missouri. And my thought at the time was, well, I can always get another job, but I only got one life. So I went out looking for a murder suspect by myself at night with no radio, no telephone, of course I had a gun. Of course
sure you did.
And was it violation of state rules? So what? So what?
Yeah.
That was my attitude. And it's, and that was my thought at the time, and it's still my thought. I can always get another job, but I only get one life.
Right.
And
I agree with you.
You're not going to send John Moore out looking for a homicide suspect by himself with no backup unless I'm armed. That's just not going to happen. And yeah, the football coach was a hero on one hand. On the other, it was so tragic that he was not armed and trained to use a firearm. Of course, he might have been trained. We don't know that, obviously.
Right.
And I know one of the local high schools. I won't mention which one. The girls in the front office, the administrative females that work there, they're well armed with wasp spray. And that's what they have for protection. Which is better than nothing, but not much better.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a face full of wasp spray will just ruin your whole day, won't it?
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, it will. Yeah, I've had the blowback hit me, and if that stuff gets in your eyes, believe me, you know it.
Right. Well, I would like to see armed security. I know many of the schools have a police officer on duty in uniform these days. I don't know what the situation was at this high school down there, but I've been part of training put on by the FBI for where the FBI was the instructors basically for active shooter drills, and everything changed after Columbine, where they no longer wait to put on the police no longer wait to put on their ninja suits and
right
before they go into school. They just the current protocols is just to run into school with whatever you've got right that moment. Don't wait. So I once again I don't know what took place down there. How long the shooter was shooting? He apparently. His fellow students are all saying that they expected him to be a shooter. So
that is something I picked up on. And I do know that they did not catch him in the school. They caught him about 3/4 of a mile away. I watched it live when they caught him. They were in a helicopter getting their video shot. And they got him, and from what I could see, there was no resistance. I guess he got hurt in some manner because I saw him load him on a stretcher, pulled him out of the back of the police car, put him on a stretcher, and the ambulance took him away.
Right.
Of course, with the police following the ambulance, of course.
Right. Well, the photo on Drudge shows him laying on the ground with his hands handcuffed, and the police officer is searching inside the waistband of his trousers there, looking for whatever he might find.
Right.
Yeah. I was just reflecting back on the way things used to be and the way things are now.
Huge difference.
And the main difference when it comes to psychological issues is that up until about 1970, they would incarcerate people who had psychological issues and presented a threat to themselves or others.
Right.
Beginning about 1970, I may be off a year one way or the other, but about 1970 is when the psychological professionals decided that they could control as aberrant behavior with pharmaceutical products and keep these people in the general population as opposed to being incarcerated where they couldn't hurt anybody. That hasn't worked out too well, has it?
No, it hasn't, John. In a way, I can understand why the mental health professionals have done what they have done. I was reading something here, and it's been in the past week or so, that something like 6% of the population should really be institutionalized. And 6% of the U.S. population, where would you put all those people?
Well, we had at one time the building on Arsenal Street there in St. Louis. St. Louis was a Missouri State Mental Hospital. Had more square feet than almost any building in the United States. That's how large that place is. Yeah, it's expensive. It's burdensome. But that's what works. I mean, there was before 1970, there was no homeless problem. We called people that were drifting with no homes, we called them hobos.
Yeah.
But psychological professionals thought, well, we can give these people a certain amount of money every month. We can give them these drugs, and they'll just get themselves a little apartment someplace, and they'll be fine. Well, they never got themselves a little apartment someplace. They take the money, they live on the street, and they have all kinds of issues with health and emotional, mental issues that living that lifestyle. They're victims of crime frequently themselves. Yes, it is expensive. Now, 6% sounds high to me. I was thinking more like 1 or 2% at the most, which is still a lot of people.
Yeah.
But that expense and burden compared to what we're seeing in terms of crime committed by people who have these issues, it may be what we need to go back to. What do you think?
I agree with what you're saying in totality. I truly do. I just, in my mind, I just, the idea of incarcerating so many people, there's going to be so many people that are there that don't need to be there just because the system would be so big. I don't know, John. I'm sort of torn between the two, what they do now and how it used to be. Neither one of them's good. So I'm just not sure. I'd really have to think long and hard about that. I'm glad I'm not the one making that decision.
Well, it's really not on the table for discussion in any forum that I'm aware of. If you got a question or comment for us, give us a call at 800-313-9443. Well, a matter like this will capture the news cycle for a good 3 to 4 days before it goes away. And we got it's become routine where the anti-gun liberals talking about how they want to ban certain types of firearms. And my response is the following: a physically healthy, strong 19-year-old could easily overcome a driver of a tanker truck with 5,000 gallons of gasoline in it, and drive that truck into the auditorium full of students, for example, explode it, and have a real mass casualty event instead of 17, maybe several hundred. The attempting to take away the means of killing people is a false hope, because there's so many ways to take human life that they're beyond being counted. But I give that as an example because I've watched these guys with these putting the fuel into the tanks at the service stations. They're bent over, paying attention, down on their knees, paying attention to what they're doing. For a criminal to come up behind one of those guys with a hammer or a brick and take that guy out, get in the truck and drive off would be a simple matter, wouldn't it?
Oh, it would be. It'd be very simple. But of course, you're right. The anti-gun people came out immediately. Hell, I don't think they'd even caught the guy before, they were already blaming the gun and not the person.
Right.
And I was watching live feed from NBC, and with that bunch of liberals, they were quite literally, the man that had done it had not even been caught. They were already blaming the gun.
Exactly.
It was just ridiculous.
Exactly. Well, 3 Civil War revolvers would have been able to kill 18 people, and they're not even legally guns. The caller on hold here. We got Rick in Missouri. Good morning, Rick.
Good morning, Tim. I don't have much to add to this discussion. In many ways, it speaks for itself. But I will say that today, my wife is a teacher, teaches young men to be older men, because I know she wore me out. They're having an active shooter drill today, which my wife cannot stand, because they'll announce that there's an active shooter somewhere in the school, and they'll give a vague location. You've got to run and lock your door, push all the kids over into the corner, and they'll have some, young buck comes screaming through the school, which, by the way, I would not want that job. You've got police on site. Comes running through, trying to get all the doors open, and it just scares the snot out of my wife, even though they know it's a drill. She hates every second of it. And then you've got the, proverbial lunatic children over in the corner giggling, basically saying, yeah, we're in here. But I can tell you this, the problem with anything armed in the school is that in general, and you know this, you know exactly what I'm going to say, these educators are so madly left, not my wife, but educators in general, that having anybody armed and ready to go in a school would be, for them, the equivalent of inviting a vampire into the house. Or it's just, they're beyond terrified. Just the sight or thought of a gun sends shudders from head to toe. And they're not joking. They're dead serious about it. They've been so well trained that a gun just terrifies them, and they can't even think. So, there's that hurdle that I don't know how you would ever get over.
Well, you get over it by the school board doing the right thing and make sure there's armed security officers, and teachers want to be armed can be there. In fact, in Missouri, teachers and custodians and bus drivers and administrative people can all be armed with the consent of the school board.
Right. Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I don't think you're going to get it. These people are, in general.
Well, then the parents need to vote with their feet and go to schools where the children are properly protected, and that's what needs to happen. Is parents vote with their feet, and the teachers also vote with their feet.
Well, I don't see a problem with that, but I'm just suggesting that there is this disconnect between the reality and trying to stop it, and it's
absolutely
with the mindset of the left.
Gotcha.
Well, thanks, guys.
Right.
All right, I'll talk
Appreciate
to you.
the call. We got a couple of callers on hold. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. It's taken 3 years before I could offer the inter-shelter domes for sale. During those 3 years, several different governments and militaries were taking all their production. The inter-shelter dome homes may be just what you've been looking for to provide affordable, energy-efficient, permanent, and attractive housing. These dome homes are prefabricated units that can be assembled in a few hours by 2 men with a ladder and simple hand tools. Check out the photos of these dome homes built in the Arctic, on tropical beaches, in suburban areas, and in forests. All the details, many photographs, and the pricing of the dome homes are listed on the left-hand side of my homepage at thelibertyman.com. I think you'll find these homes are not only attractive, but they're energy efficient, and a bonus. You can disassemble them and reassemble them as many times as you feel you need to. Pretty great, huh? Something that's very, very unique. Check them out at my website at thelibertyman.com. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. J.R. Moore here on Thursday, the 15th of February. Tim, before we get to our next caller, do you have any flash drives in stock?
Yes, actually I do. We've been selling a few of them. I'm down to 6 left right now, ready to go. But, yeah, we can absolutely fill an order right now. And, folks, they're only $59.95, 1,570 books and papers and documents on there, and lots of good information, and the index
right there.
Is that rural
survival
right there,
right. Ruralsurvival.info. Our next caller is Dan in Missouri. Good morning, Dan.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. How you doing there, Jim?
Good morning. Doing good, buddy.
Good.
That's good to hear. On this school thing, I'm not the brightest, sharpest tack in the box, but have they thought about dogs? I mean, a dog is an incredible deterrent. You could turn that dog loose. He could run those hallways so darn quick and grab somebody. And
well, there's I've in corporate security, which this would legitimately be considered close to corporate security. The insurance carriers will charge you a massive premium if there's any dog on the premises trained to attack people. It's a massive liability.
Oh. Well, police have got them. They sure turn dogs loose. You know,
they do, but you don't see very many. It's usually the dogs used by police are not trained to attack. They can be, and they are, but more often than not, they're trained to find drugs. But a dog specifically trained to attack people is a massive liability, and you pay a really good premium on your insurance policy to take care of that.
Okay, well, I was just brainstorming here. Something else I wanted to bring up that's a little bit off topic. Well, I guess quite a bit. That video you've got on your website, John, with the lady being interviewed by Josh Tolley.
Right.
That's an absolutely gut-wrenching thing to watch and to even consider that it could be true, and I'm not saying it's not. I've showed that to a number of people, and they just shake their head and they go, but it's not supposed to be like that. It can't be like that. And I said, well, people aren't supposed to break the speed limit either, but they do. And then I got to reading on YouTube's, and there's quite a bit of information about that interview. And in the New American, they wrote a magazine article on it, and they said that she actually testified at our Capitol here in Missouri now who she testified to, I don't know, but evidently she brought this information up in front of...
A committee hearing. It was probably a committee hearing.
Have you heard any follow-up on this?
I have not. I've not looked into it for follow-up, Dan. Well, why don't you look into it and report back to us what you find?
Well, I can try that. I'm going to the Social Security office tomorrow. They close down at noon. They have a problem with money, I was told. And they close down at noon. But anyway, I'm going to go there tomorrow and see if I can get somebody to sit down with me and watch that, because they're supposedly handing out Social Security cards.
Well, the person you want to watch it would be the manager of that office. That's who.
Right.
That's who you need to get. Make an appointment ahead of time. Don't just walk in cold.
That's a good point. Thank you, John.
Okay, Dan.
All right,
last caller.
Carry on.
Thank you. Last caller this half hour will be Paul in New Jersey. We're almost out of time here, Paul.
Hello, gentlemen.
Good morning.
I would just like to remind the callers that our founders would give citizenship only to people of good character. And I do believe our gun laws have to restrict certain types of guns, any AR, high-capacity, semi-automatic weapon, to citizens until they've proven themselves to be responsible, diligent citizens who contribute. So in other words, I propose that you have to have a history of, like I said, keeping a job, saving money, being a diligent, decent citizen, where people can attest to your character before being allowed to buy any of these high-capacity firearms.
Well,
in the state of New Jersey, we have a law where, when I had to get my gun license, we have to have several references to generally attest to your character. And I think it's...
I disagree with you, Paul. I have to disagree with you, Paul. We already have protocols. We already have protocols to identify people with mental issues. This young man was already identified with mental issues and should have been dealt with accordingly. It's a tiny percentage of people who have these issues, as opposed to putting everybody through the protocols that you want. All we need to do is follow up with what we already know, which is to deal effectively with people that present a danger to themselves and others. He had already been identified as such, and because it's 2018 instead of 1969, he was allowed to remain in the general population instead of being locked up. So the way to deal with this, Paul, effectively, is to identify people who present a danger to themselves and others and lock them up where they can't hurt anybody, as opposed to putting 98% of the people through protocols that serve no purpose because they're good people to begin with.
Well, I would disagree, because I believe the dissolute can't keep a job. People without a work ethic, and a job and the ability to save money shows you are diligent, that you can get up in the morning and be a good citizen. If you can't keep a job, I also believe you shouldn't be able to own high-capacity firearms. And we should remember one last thing before I go, is that when people become schizophrenic, that age group is when schizophrenia pops its head up, and we discover that people have these mental illnesses, late teens, early 20s.
Right.
And as I said, people in that age group who are apt to commit these things also are the people who don't hold jobs or can't keep a steady job.
We're going to have to agree to disagree on that, Paul, but we do thank you for your call. We have about an hour break. We'll be back with Tom Berryhill. Stay tuned.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. J.R. Moore here on Thursday, the 15th of February. This is the 24 minutes I look forward to every week when we talk about a very special product called the Energy Cleaner. And we begin this conversation with my friend Tom Berryhill, the manufacturer of Energy Cleaner, giving us our disclaimer. Good morning, Tom.
Hi, John. Good morning. We're not doctors or medical professionals. We don't diagnose, treat, or cure any illness or disease. The information discussed today is for your education and entertainment only. If you have a medical condition requiring treatment, you should utilize the services of a medical doctor, chiropractor, or other competent practitioner.
All right. Well, I got something unusual this morning to talk about with the Energy Cleaner. I ran across an older Energy Cleaner I had in a box that I'd forgotten about, and in pristine condition. It's one of the cream-colored Energy Cleaners. Goes back several years in perfect condition. And I'm going to make that available to the first person that wants to buy one with PayPal for $70 off retail. That would be $215 to get a pristine condition Energy Cleaner. All they need to do is call our call-in line here at 800-313-9443. Let my manager know that the first one that calls that wants the Energy Cleaner for $215 with PayPal, only with PayPal. They'll be the one to get it. Just give your name and telephone number to my engineer, and you'll get that pristine condition, cream-colored Energy Cleaner. How about that, Tom?
Well, John, that's quite an offer. And just to let your listeners know, that is the earlier units that we made. We used that style case for many, many years. The only reason we continued is because the mold had many stress fractures and had been repaired several times, and it was beyond use, and the replacement cost was around $50,000. So we abandoned that. We went with thermoforming. And if you remember that I worked out those details in January of 2014, and that's the new black case that we use and has been in production all the way up to date, to today.
Exactly.
Yeah, otherwise the electronics is exactly the same. There's no difference in its performance.
Well, somebody's going to get themselves a real bargain here to get a pristine condition energy cleaner for $215 instead of $285. That's shipping included, of course. Gentlemen, I was talking to Dr. Joe, and he and I are talking about him incorporating the energy cleaner into his medical practice. He's now focusing primarily on geriatrics, and he said, and I'm probably talking to him later today. He says, John, I know he's already got 5 for his personal use, by the way. Yeah. And he says, John, I know the energy cleaner will help many of my patients. So he and I still need to work out the details about how it's going to take place. But we're having more and more healthcare professionals using energy cleaners, aren't we, Tom?
Oh, all the time, John. I've even talked with practitioners medical doctors, as a matter of fact, who prescribe the energy cleaner to their patients. That has happened several times. I know in one case, actually, we're able to get an insurance company to make the payment. So the energy cleaner was totally covered by an insurance company, which really surprised me that they went along with it. So it is happening.
Right. Well, that's the advantage of having a prescription, is that there's a far greater likelihood that the insurance company will pay for it, and they would probably pay for the mattress pad as well, because that would be part of the therapy. That would be great.
That would be that'd be a complete system, and I'm certain that they would cover that entire cost.
Right. Well, when I'm talking to Dr. Joe about that, I will, we'll cover all those topics. And if you're a new listener, and this is radio, we always have new people every week. A dramatic increase since I was in Prague, Czech Republic last July, doing my presentation there to receive the Prague Peace Prize. So if you're a new listener, here's what we're talking about. First of all, if you want more details, go to my website, thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. And scroll down the right side. If you're using a smartphone, good luck. My website doesn't work all that well with smartphones. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But the energy cleaner is a healing device that puts out an electrostatic signal that goes to every cell in your body, flushing out toxins, bringing in fresh nutrition. We talk about pain mitigation. It could be arthritis pain, joint pain, back pain, does not matter. It could be getting a good night's sleep could be an issue. So those two things we talk about for the energy cleaner helping people, which we're talking a huge percentage of adults in this country that have issues with either pain or sleep, aren't we, Tom?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's no question about it. And while I'm thinking about it, John, and I'm not trying to deviate from what we're talking about at all, but, for people that have pets, and that I'm sure many are like me, where the dogs are part of the family and everything else, this energy cleaner does tremendous things for pets. It will, if you take and put the spoon onto the alligator clip and drop it in a fish tank, it does amazing things for the fish even. We've tried it, so I know it works.
Right.
And, that's just one more use besides the, starting seeds and growing vegetables and all.
Right. Well, any living organism, a tomato plant, a puppy dog, or a human being is going to be helped by the energy cleaner. The energy cleaner is about the size of a cigar box. It takes 9 Ds and Delta 9 D-cell batteries. No on-off switch, no gauges, no dial, simply one LED light that alternately flashes red or green, telling you two things. First of all, it's working. Second of all, it's changing polarity. And one place to plug in one wire, which could be a wire going to the mattress pads that I offer for sale, or a metal spoon you put in either a bathtub full of warm water or a hot tub in comfortably warm water and get in there with the energy cleaner signal, or attach the alligator clip to a homemade screen pad that you make yourself. That's how you use it. Now, relief comes in a matter of sometimes minutes, it may be 2 to 3 days. Rarely more than 3 days does it take for people to start feeling different, does it, Tom?
Yeah, 2 or 3 days, John, people really start to feel the difference. In some cases, it's as quick as within the hour. We have seen it go both ways. But, with your 90-day money-back guarantee, that's more than enough time for everybody and anybody to give it a try and see how it's going to work for them. I think most people will find that within even a couple of weeks, they'll really start noticing some differences.
And some people, they'll be using it for a week or 10 days, and they'll say, John, I don't feel much different. And I say, unplug it and tell me how you feel the next morning. Right, Tim, you've done this, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because, the alligator clip came off the wire that I had run into the screen pad. Yeah, that happened when I first year or so I started using it. And, all of a sudden I noticed, there's something wrong. And I went checking all the wires, and sure enough, the energy cleaner alligator clip had come undone from the wire that was running to the screen pad. So, yes, absolutely.
Well, with a house full of grandchildren and dogs, I'm not surprised it's something would get tampered with somehow, some way. And you need to keep the bedroom door shut to keep the dogs off the bed, don't you?
Oh, yeah. If neither Lori or I are in there and we leave that door open, we'll come upstairs and, there's a sheepish-looking Great Dane laying on the bed because he knows he's not supposed to be there.
It's the same now. Your daughter's got the energy cleaner on her mattress also. She has to keep her door shut also.
Yes.
Right. How's she doing, by the way?
Oh, she's doing well. I think that her relief has come slowly, and I don't think she really notices it. But what I notice is how much more flexible she is when she gets up in the morning now compared to what it used to be.
Right. Well, she may be, and it wouldn't be a bad time, and you need to do this for both your energy cleaners. I keep a paper tag on the side of mine. I have several energy cleaners I use, giving the date to change the batteries once a year.
Right.
And it wouldn't hurt to do that, Tim, if you haven't done it lately, to check the date. Because I changed batteries in one of my energy cleaners just the other day. Well, ladies and gentlemen, all the patent application information is at my website. The second hour here, we're going to have Steve Whitman with us. And gentlemen, I just talked to Steve yesterday, and his first book he wrote, Winning Life's Lottery, is enjoying ever greater sales, and that's a story of his life literally being saved by the energy cleaner, and he gives the energy cleaner and myself credit for saving his life. So we'll be talking about his book, Winning Life's Lottery, the second hour, and how the energy cleaner saved his life and also saved the life of his wife. So that's always fun. We're going to try to get Steve on about once a month to talk about that. Well, Tom, your manufacturing energy cleaner has become your life's passion, hasn't it, sir?
Oh, it sure has, John. I've worked on other types of energy healing equipment. Good success with all of it, but nothing has ever worked as good as the energy cleaner. I actually heard from a customer, I believe the gentleman was in California. This is several years ago, and he said he had tried many different types of energy healing modes, including a $10,000 Rife machine that he had purchased, and he said nothing in his stock of healing devices, nothing has worked as well as the energy cleaner. And he had actually abandoned everything else and offered them for sale to other people and had focused on the energy cleaner, and that's been his main instrument from then on. So that speaks very highly of it, where it outperformed a $10,000 Rife machine.
Right. Well, there's a place for rife machines, but the energy cleaner stands head and shoulders above the other technologies, and that's one of the things people they when first hear about the energy cleaner, they ask, is it a TENS unit? No, it's not a TENS unit. Is it a rife machine frequency generator? No, it's not a rife machine frequency generator. It's its own standalone technology. It's unrelated to all these other healing devices, isn't it, Tom?
That's correct, John. And I like to describe the use of this energy cleaner as simply a set of jumper cables for every cell in your body. If the cells can be cleaned out and operating properly and flush out the toxic waste material and bring in fresh nutrition from the blood supply, they'll function properly and your body will heal itself. So that's what we do, is we assist every weak cell to begin pumping again and operating properly. It's that simple.
All right. If you got a question or comment about the energy cleaner, give us a call at 800-313-9443. Well, this technology is cutting edge. It's standalone, unique. It's simple. Most people make use of it like I do, and Tim and Tom. They have a mattress pad, just simply sleep on it every night. Get a great night's sleep. I know myself, after about 6 hours, I could probably get up and hit it again, but I do go ahead and rest for 8 hours. But the sleep I get is just so deep and quiet and restful. It's just amazing, the difference, isn't it, Tom?
That seems to be the way it is, John, and we hear from so many people with similar comments that they sleep like they've never slept before. Another thing that people should realize is sometimes especially when first starting with the energy cleaner, you may have very vivid, lucid dreaming, dreaming in full color, full motion video. It's like you're really there. That actually happened to me early on. Yeah, that's right, Tim. And so many people have commented on that when they were not even told about it in advance. They actually contacted me later to report that very thing. So that is something you should maybe be aware of, that you may have some very vivid dreaming. It's quite interesting.
It is. All these and little things like I have to get a haircut more frequently. I have to trim my nails more frequently. Enhanced nail growth and enhanced hair growth is a sign of health, isn't it, Tim?
Yeah, it is. Absolutely, it is. In fact, people pay big money for vitamins that will supposedly make their hair and nails grow better or faster. You know, I've noticed that in a lot of my web work, that a lot of people are selling these vitamins to enhance hair growth or enhance nail growth, for women.
Right. Well, ladies, something else. All you ladies listening out there, we don't talk about this too much, but ladies, the energy cleaner will help the man in your life have an enhanced libido, and if that's something you're interested in, hey, get yourself an energy cleaner, right, Tim?
Yeah. It's been a long time since I ever thought about that, but yes, it does make a difference. It truly does.
So, I know Lee Kroc would talk about that in a bit more stronger terms than I do, wouldn't he, Tom?
Yes, John, he certainly did, and I was amazed they didn't have to.
This is a family
show. Yeah, right. I'm surprised they didn't have to end the show early, but he got quite graphic in the benefits of using the energy cleaner in that area, and it as a matter of fact, I remember Lee calling me after that broadcast, and he said quite a few units were ordered. So it was very interesting, to say the least.
Well, that's an important part of life, having a strong, healthy libido. And, of course, people are going to gravitate towards that. Why not? And as opposed to these pharmaceutical products that men have been taking now for a number of years, which the list of side effects is pretty darn scary. And there are no side effects with no bad or adverse side effects with the energy cleaner, is there, Tom?
Yes, that's right, John. There's, well, you know, if you really think about what I said earlier, how the energy cleaner is working with every cell in your body, it just goes to explain what's happening here, and every function in your body is going to be improved by using the energy cleaner. So
absolutely,
it's certainly
Here's our break.
Worthwhile giving it a try.
Break. We'll be right back. Here's our break. All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Thursday, the 15th of February. Well, gentlemen, I did everything except tell people how to buy the energy cleaner. Silly me, right? The energy cleaner is $285, shipping included. You can buy the energy cleaner right there at my website. Place your order right there at my website at thelibertyman.com using PayPal, the most secure way to make any payment online, MasterCard, Visa. You can send me a check. My address is right there at my website at thelibertyman.com. You can order the mattress pads right there also at my website at thelibertyman.com. I have a toll-free R line. Here it is, 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. We have not yet had somebody call up wanting a pristine condition energy cleaner for $215 using PayPal yet. We'll continue this offer through the second hour and see if somebody wants to get a real bargain here. And Tim, you still got the cream-colored one that you got from me 8 years ago, don't you?
Yeah, and it works great. Absolutely. Yep. You know, only thing different, as far as I know, is the color of the case and what the case is made out of. Like Tom was saying, obviously the electronics are identical.
Right. And that's what's important. The internal workings of it, the signal that comes out, that's the same. The only thing that's different is the color of the case. So right. If you want a pristine condition energy cleaner for $215 instead of $285 using PayPal, just call 800-313-9443. Give my engineer your name and telephone number. I'll get back with you, and we will take care of that. The seed catalogs are out, and one of our local organic gardeners has an energy cleaner that him and his wife will be using for their seedlings over the next few weeks. When would typically be getting the seedlings in little cups there, Tim?
I'll be putting mine in the end of March, most likely.
Okay. So we're looking at about 6 weeks.
Right.
Okay. And in the meantime, the gentleman has some health issues that he's dealing with, and he said he has some screen wire. He's going to make himself a pad and be using it for his personal use also. I go to church with this couple, and I'm looking forward to getting a report on how it's doing for him and his wife. It'll be an interesting project to see how his seedlings do and how the plants do as we get deeper into spring. Will you be using the energy cleaner this season on our garden, Tim? Do you know?
I don't know about on the garden. I definitely will be using it for the seedlings, though.
Okay.
No question about that. The garden, it's just a matter of, which garden space. I've got 4 spaces we grow stuff in, and it's just a matter of which one we use it on. I'm probably going to, the layout of my house, but the one behind the house next to the duck pen is probably the one I'm going to use the energy cleaner on.
Okay. Okay.
That's where we're going to have the peas and beans and all.
Tom, thank you. Tim held over. We're going to do the second hour here with Steve Whitman. It'll be a good conversation. And
I think it will.
It will. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Okay. Top of the hour break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Thursday, the 15th of February. prep tip of the day, I want to encourage all of you to work with the pastor of your church to develop a church security program. I want to encourage all of you to make sure that your child goes to a school that has armed officers, possibly armed teachers, bus drivers, custodians. If your state doesn't allow that, well, you need to start lobbying to have your state allow properly trained people to be armed to protect the children in the school. The state of Missouri has that, and hopefully your state will also. Okay, we're going to continue this second hour with Tim Spencer, and hopefully Steve Whitman will be calling in. Apparently he has not yet, and when Steve calls in, we'll bring him on board here. The news continues to be, and will be for the rest of this day, probably tomorrow, and I think by Monday the news cycle will move on to something else. But the big news is still the tragic shooting in South Florida, and looks like we got somebody finally called in to take advantage of the energy cleaner deal, and that's cool. Tony in North Dakota. Thank you for calling, Tony. The school shooting will be the top of the news cycle for the rest of the day, today, tomorrow, and maybe into Saturday. Right now we have with us our friend, and the three of us, although we've never met in person, myself, Tim Spencer, and Steve Whitman, we've all got to know each other these past several years, and it's been an interesting relationship working with Steve, helping Steve find that he has hidden talents that he was not aware of at all until I encouraged him to write that first story about how he survived that incident 3.5 years ago. Good morning, Steve Whitman.
Good morning, John. How are you doing?
Really good, sir. What part of the country are you in this morning?
Well, I'm in Florida, and unfortunately down here, as you know, there was a pretty bad situation yesterday.
Right.
And, and everybody's talking about it.
I bet they are. Well, not just Florida. I'm sure that every cafe in the United States, the men, I've been in cafes all over the United States, and almost all these small town cafes have a round table, typically near the back, where the men gather after they've fed their cattle or done their chores. And I'm sure at every cafe in the United States it's the main topic of discussion. During the first hour, Steve, I was commenting that up until about 1970, we would lock up men and women who presented a danger to themselves or others. And we discontinued that policy 48 years ago, and now we're living the consequences, aren't we, Steve?
Well, it's funny. In fact, I was talking to a couple of people back in Massachusetts about this last night. In Massachusetts, I know this from personal experience. I have a very good friend of mine who had a daughter who was going to a private school, very prestigious private school. And she texted to someone, this is a high school, by the way, she texted to someone that she was very depressed and that she was didn't want to hurt herself or she didn't want to hurt anybody. Okay?
All right.
Well, within about 5 hours, the police were at her door, and they took her away from her mother. And they put her into a week's evaluation at one of the hospitals, and there was nothing they could do about it.
Right.
And I'm wondering why in Florida, I guess, they don't have that law in the books like Massachusetts does. It's called Section 12, where if you're a danger to yourself or anyone else, they have the rights to come in and take you away, so to speak.
Well, most states have similar laws. Missouri, I believe it's 72 hours, isn't it, Tim? 72 hours?
Yeah, it is, John.
Yeah, you were a police dispatcher back in your younger days. Okay, here's the rest of the story, Steve. Here's the rest of the story. Yeah. I'm pretty sure all 50 states have some similar type law. It's going to vary from state to state, on one hand. On the other, they're taken into custody, they're given this evaluation, and either they're discharged with no further intervention or protocols or anything of that nature, or they're given a pharmaceutical product and instructed to consume that pharmaceutical product however many times a day to deal with the psychological issue they're dealing with. And that doesn't work. Now, we don't know yet if this young man in Florida had been through some type of psychological evaluation. Now, what we have seen, Steve, without exception, the exceptions are the Muslims, because they don't need pharmaceutical products to be crazy. They're already crazy. But without exception, well, I'm serious. I mean, it's kind of funny, but it's serious.
I
know. But without exception, these mass murderers have all had a prescription for some psychotropic drug. And my expectation is we will see the same thing with this boy down there, this 19-year-old young man down in Florida. That's my expectation.
It's funny. I heard on the TV last night that he's been on antidepressant drugs. And, with the experience I had, naturally, the fellow that, tried to do me in, he was on drugs as well, and I write about that in the book, okay?
Right.
And it seems every time we have something like this, okay, the person has been put on pharmaceuticals, okay? Right. And one thing that really got to me, about 3 months ago, I was listening to a doctor on the TV on Fox News, and they asked him, how does these antidepressants work? And he actually said, well, we really don't know how they work, but they do. And when I heard that, I went, holy mackerel.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you say something like that? Or actually prescribe something like that without knowing what they do to you, or how they do it to you, I should say.
Well, in addition, the insert, there's always a package insert. One of the side effects of almost all antidepressants I'm aware of is depression. So the side effect of the drug you're taking for depression gives you depression, even if you're not depressed to start with.
See, that's what happened. That's what happened with the fellow that went after me. He was on antidepressants. He was on Vicodin, which causes depression too. But then they gave him Lyrica, okay, which causes suicidal thoughts as well as violence, okay? And here they are giving him an antidepressant, to take the depression away, and Lyrica gives him depression. Okay, so, we got drugs are fighting each other.
Absolutely. Well, we got new listeners here who don't know who Steve Whitman is, haven't heard your story. And I'm losing track of time. It's 2018. Was it the summer of 2014? 13. My goodness. It'll be 5 years ago this summer coming up.
Wow.
Whoa, time flies.
Yeah.
So
I guess.
we need to back up to, I'm going to give a Reader's Digest version of Steve Whitman's life, and just bear with me, Steve. So, Steve had his chosen career, his chosen profession was to be a civil engineer, right? Civil engineer, Steve?
Yes, and a land surveyor.
And land surveyor. So you're having success in your chosen profession. You've got quite a few employees, and your dream. Life's goal, above and beyond being a successful civil engineer, was to become a Maine guide, which is quite an accomplishment because of all the things you need to go through. So you're wrapping up your first successful career, selling that business, and using the proceeds to buy a rundown, wore-out camp up in Maine. Are we on track so far?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, now, another one of your passions was being a weightlifter. And I've never been a weightlifter myself, but I know weightlifters wear these huge leather belts. And you were in a hurry one day. You neglected to put on the huge leather belt. You injured yourself, and that brought an end to your weightlifting days, didn't it?
Well, it didn't bring a total end to it, but believe me, I was really hampered by it, and naturally all my weights went right down in half. I had to adjust my routines around my bad back. I mean, I was constantly in pain, constantly.
Right, and that was about how long ago?
Well, that was in the early 90s.
Early 90s, so quite a while ago. We're looking at 25 plus years ago. Okay, so fast forward. You got the fish camp. It's the summer of 2013, and you're doing work at the camp, and you injured your back all over again, didn't you?
Yeah, I had never actually gotten better all those years. I went to doctors, chiropractors. They put me on muscle relaxers. You name it, they tried it. But I got better enough so that I could basically get around, so to speak. But when I injured my back in camp, hauling some concrete block, that really put an end to it.
Right. So you're hurting. You could barely get in and out of your truck, and you're really screwed up. And your buddy tells you what?
Well, we listened, to your show, and he told me, he says, one night, he says, hey, he says, why don't you try the energy cleaner? What do you got to lose? And I hemmed and hawed. I says, yeah, I suppose so. And so I ordered one. I mean, it's the same old.
A little procrastination, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like you've been put through so much. Okay. In fact, I have to talk to you later on the show here about this other person. I think we're going to be putting the energy cleaner to the test on this guy. But anyway, it's just when you try so many things, and somebody says, "Well, try this device that basically is a small box with a cord coming out of it. It's going to help you." I mean, you're pessimistic. I mean, you can't
exactly.
You can't avoid it. So, but anyway, I did order it, and I did put it on our bed at camp. And after a week, I was really taken back by it.
And so you're feeling better, and you even started lifting weights again, didn't you?
Well, yeah, I got. My weight started to go back up. I was out running again. I mean, I was jumping in and out of the truck. I mean, I was like a kid. I was like a kid 25 years ago. So it was just a total turnaround, and it only took about a week. It was really surprising how fast it happened.
Right. Well, that was very gratifying. So you're feeling more energetic, more stronger, with more energy, no back pain for the first time in 25 years. And agility strength and agility played a great role in saving your life a few weeks later, didn't it?
Well, yeah, it was about a month later, actually, when I was on a backhoe working, cleaning out a drainage ditch, and a past employee showed up on the job site that had worked for me for about 6 years. And he had quit about a year before that due to physical limitations. Excuse me. And lo and behold, he pulled out a .45 and he shot me 3 times with it.
Right, once in the right hand and twice in the torso. That began. That changed your life in many ways, obviously, and everything had to fall into place precisely in a certain manner. For example, you walked past your cell phone sitting on your dresser in your bedroom or wherever it was, and you picked it up, which you never did that because it was useless. It didn't work out there, didn't it?
Right. On that, we have 1.5 miles of gravel road that we maintain, and most of it, there's only a few sections in the road that the cell phone will work, and plus being on a backhoe, you know how noisy they are anyway. You can't hear a cell phone ringing in your pocket or something.
Right.
So I never took it out there.
Right.
That day I did.
That day you did. So you're working, and the gentleman drives up in his mother's car, and what happened next?
Well, I thought, seeing him, I thought he was just, because it was 4:45 in the afternoon, and I thought he was stopping to, go back to camp with me to have coffee with my brother like we did every day at 5 o'clock when he worked for us. And unfortunately, I never saw it coming. There were bits and pieces, as I say in the book, there were hints of it, something was up. But when your awareness isn't, up and running, you're in condition yellow, as they say.
Right.
If you're in condition white, it's all over. And I was in condition white. I never suspected anything. And he shot me once, and that hit me in the right hand and almost took my right index finger off. And then I realized, because I saw out of the corner of my eye him pointing the .45 at me. I mean, he was only like 10 feet away from me, sitting in his mother's car next to the backhoe. And I must have turned slightly to the left, and the next shot came in right into my side of my chest, went through my chest, into the other side, into my left shoulder. And then I realized I had to get out of there, like they say, get out of Dodge. And this is where my back comes into play, because my back was good, and I was able to move. And I actually leaped off that machine, okay, not caring how I landed, whatever, just to get out of there. And I took the third one in my back, and it came out my upper right chest. But if it wasn't for being able to move and whatever, God knows. I mean, the second shot missed my heart by half an inch. So he definitely probably would have got me with a kill shot if I hadn't leaped off that machine.
Right. So you're down. You've got the machine between you and the shooter, and you hear a fourth shot, don't you?
Yeah. Well, when I was sitting on the ground, I thought I broke my left arm because I landed face first into the gravel when I hit the ground, and I couldn't move either arm. Well, I couldn't move my left arm, and I had my right hand. I used my pinky finger and my thumb to squeeze together the entrance and exit hole in my chest to keep the blood from pouring out. And then immediately, right away, thoughts go, where is he? Okay.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, the fourth shot goes. And I must have jumped 2 feet off the ground sitting there because I thought, he put another one in.
Right.
And but there was nobody there. I looked up the front of the backhoe, the back of the backhoe. There's nobody there, and that's when I finally, after a few moments, with just the machine idling there was nothing, and so that's when I pushed myself up against the rear tire. Looked over, and there he was sitting in the car with smoke coming out of his head.
Amazing. We'll continue this after the break. Everybody stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. It's taken 3 years before I could offer the inter-shelter domes for sale. During those 3 years, several different governments and militaries were taking all their production. The inter-shelter dome homes may be just what you've been looking for to provide affordable, energy-efficient, permanent, and attractive housing. These dome homes are prefabricated units that can be assembled in a few hours by 2 men with a ladder and simple hand tools. Check out the photos of these dome homes built in the Arctic, on tropical beaches, in suburban areas, and in forests. All the details, many photographs, and the pricing of the dome homes are listed on the left-hand side of my homepage at thelibertyman.com. I think you'll find these homes are not only attractive, but they're energy efficient, and a bonus. You can disassemble them and reassemble them as many times as you feel you need to. Pretty great, huh? Something that's very, very unique. Check them out at my website at thelibertyman.com. Thank you. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Thursday, the 15th of February. The story that you're telling here, Steve, initially I asked you to write an article to be published on ruralsurvival.info, which you graciously did. And then from there, that article became a book titled Winning Life's Lottery, didn't it, Steve?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. It started me on the path, I guess you can say. It's something I never dreamed I was capable of doing, but I did it, and people so far who have read the book have enjoyed it.
And your book is enjoying increased sales, isn't it?
Yeah, it has, actually. A lot of people who come up to me who have read the book, they say, everything in that book can't be true. I says, yes, every word is.
Soon to be a movie.
There you go.
Yeah, a lot of people. Yeah, a lot of people have said that.
Well, they should.
There's even been people on Amazon who have left reviews on the book who said that it should be made into a movie.
It should be. It should be.
Yeah,
it's reality. This is a very, very tough and hard reality here. What you went through that particular day. So we left the story off. The shooter commits suicide. There's smoke coming out of the top of his head. And here's Steve on the side of the next to the backhoe. Engines running. Thank goodness. No cell phone service unless you drive, because you're not going to walk, unless you drive the backhoe. About how far using your elbow to steer the steering wheel?
I had to drive about a mile up the road.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
It was, and believe me, driving with your left elbow, you really don't have that much control. I found that out. I was from one side of the road to the other, and I almost hit a telephone pole and a couple of trees, and in fact, I went into the trees a couple of times. It was, because naturally, here you are. At that point in time, I really had no idea if I was bleeding inside, okay,
right,
or what was going on.
Well, of course you're bleeding inside. You had 2 bullets go through you.
Well, I didn't know how bad I was bleeding inside.
Oh, okay.
Put it that way.
Yeah.
But I had to get to what we call the 3 corners. It's the highest point on the road. And I knew at that location I had cell service, so I had to get there because I was out in the middle of the boonies. Nobody would have come and got me, that's for sure.
Right. So you get to where the cell phone service. Now, because you're a main guide, you had training to treat for shock, and you recognize the symptoms of shock, and you think to yourself, "Oh, I'm going into shock." So you got off the tractor, and was giving yourself treatment for shock, weren't you?
Yes, I knew I had to get off the machine because the cold sweats were coming and the dizziness and all the signs, and. So I knew if I passed out, it was over. And so I got off the machine. Of course, I fell flat on my face because my legs were weak. And I had to crawl over to the drainage ditch, get my feet up, treat myself for shock. And then, luckily, I had a speed dial for 911 on my phone, my smartphone. And I was able to hit that with my little pinky. And I had to hit that like 5-6 times before I finally got through. And,
right. Well, you're doing that. That was getting, we got miracles stacked up on miracles here. Now, the next miracle, this area is so remote, ladies and gentlemen, that people would go bear hunting there, wouldn't they?
Oh, yes. Yep. In fact, that's what came along. After I had called and got the ambulance on the way and the state police, it was maybe 10-15 minutes later that a pickup truck comes rolling down the road, and it has 4 bear hunters in it. And something you really don't see that often. And naturally, when they got out of the truck, they asked, "What the hell's going on?" Of course, I was all covered in blood and white as a sheet, and I said, "Well, a guy shot me." And of course, the look on their eyes was, "Oh my God, what's going on?"
Well, they went into the instant caregiver and protector mode, the 3 men, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. They had lever actions with them, 30-30s and 45-70 and whatever. And they threw shells in them right away, and they said, "Don't worry, buddy. He'll never get up that hill after you." And
right.
The main thing is they had paper towels.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to the paper towel part of this when we get back. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Ladies Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. We're continuing our energy cleaner promotion, which began August of 2016. In this promotion, you get to buy an energy cleaner, $70 off retail, and a mattress pad, 10% off retail. $200 of the purchase price of the energy cleaner goes to Republic Broadcasting. This is a great way to help get energy cleaners out to people who need them and have some financial issues to deal with. And, of course, a great way to support Republic Broadcasting. Here's what you do. Send in a postcard. My address is John Moore, P.O. Box 201, Davidsville, Missouri. We pick a postcard every 2 weeks. If your postcard is drawn, you get the chance to buy the energy cleaner, $70 off retail, and 10% off the mattress pads. Put your name and your address, your telephone number, and your email address on the postcard, and we wish you the best of luck. Thank you. All right, we are back. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. J.R. Moore here on Thursday, the 15th February. I don't want to take up too much time here. Check out the energy cleaners at my website at thelibertyman.com. Make your decision, place your order, or call my toll-free order line at 800-592-9543. Visiting with Tim Spencer, the proprietor of ruralsurvival.info, which was critical in getting Steve Whitman's writing career going, which he's become quite the accomplished writer. And Steve Whitman, of course, is telling his story. Now, if you put Steve Whitman, that's Whitmann, into Amazon search box, I think all your books will come up, won't they, Steve?
Yes, it's Whitman, actually, John. It's one N.
One N, okay. Whitman. I was going for the German spelling, sorry. And, they're all there. And what is the title of your most recent book, sir?
It's Shaker Madison, Conspiracy to Murder.
All right. Well, unlike myself, you've never been a homicide detective, but you write a pretty. I feel like I'm at work, Steve, when I'm reading your books. It's kind of. I mean, with the exception of you and a couple other friends that are authors, I don't read murder novels because it's too much like being at work, and I can tell when I'm reading a well-written murder mystery because I'm back at work.
You're back at work.
I'm back at work when I'm reading one of your books, yeah, and which is mostly good. It's mostly good. How about you, Tim?
Well, yeah, I absolutely agree. You know, Steve's got this way of writing that makes you not want to put down the book. You know, there's just no way you want to put it down. And when Lori had surgery on her shoulder, and I was sitting there in the waiting room for 8 hours, I read Steve's first book, Winning Life Lottery, and I never wanted to put it down at all. Sorry about the noise. I was sitting out on the porch. Dog saw somebody coming up the driveway. I apologize.
Well, that's okay. Well, we call a book like that a page turner, and all your books are definitely page turners, and I encourage people to go to Amazon.com. Just put Steve Whitman with one N in the search box there, and all of Steve's books will come up. Well, Steve, let's see. Back to the story. You're on the ground. The bear hunters are standing guard, two standing guard, one literally plugging the holes in your body with paper towels. And you were surprised to find out what on the backside of you?
Well, I had forgotten that actually the third bullet came in through my back and out through my chest. And, I didn't even think about my backside. Actually, I couldn't have done anything with it anyway on my back. And one of the bear hunters said to me, he says, buddy, you're bleeding out the back too. I go, I am? He goes, oh, yeah, and you're bleeding good too. And that's when I kind of reached around with my hand the best I could, my injured hand, and I felt, my whole backside was completely covered in blood. And he naturally took a piece of paper towel and shoved it in the hole. To stop the bleeding.
Amazing. It was a convoluted route for the ambulance to get there. They finally picked you up, and they're giving first aid on the spot, of course, and transporting you. What did the first responders, other than stopping the bleeding, what were they doing to you?
Well, naturally, they had, the right compresses and that sort of stuff. I mean, tape and whatever, and they were, they cut my shirt off right away and naturally went to work. And then they, put me on the bottles of saline solution and whatever. So
get your blood pressure back up.
Yeah, and they were surprised actually that I never lost consciousness. And it was a good thing I never did because although there were a couple of times when I was laying in the ditch especially, you can feel yourself when something like this happens. You can feel yourself almost, I wouldn't call it going to sleep, but it's almost like you're almost willing to accept what happens. Okay?
Right.
And that's when you really have to bear down and say, and in fact, I even remember this like it was yesterday. I said, I can remember hollering almost on the top of my lungs, not today. I am not going to die today. Okay? And I actually sat up. So it
amazing.
That was
amazing.
That was a very pivotal point.
Absolutely. So, how long was the transport to that first hospital?
Well, they didn't pick me up I didn't get into the ambulance for about an hour afterwards because they had problems getting into me and whatever. But the trip to the first hospital was probably around a half an hour to get to the first hospital.
Okay, all right. And they get you there, and you got these medical doctors, nurses, and so forth. They jump right in on you, don't they?
Oh, yeah. I had probably 6 nurses, 3 doctors, and a bunch of technicians all running around. They had me in the gurney and put me on the table, x-rays, CAT scans, the whole bunch of tests. It was almost like you see on TV when they have an ER emergency with everybody running around, and doing their job.
All right. And your treatment there lasted how long, sir?
I was there probably almost 3 hours. But that hospital, they said they weren't equipped for the severe trauma that had happened to me. And also for taking out the bullet. I had one bullet stuck in my shoulder, the one that went through my chest to the side. And so they said that you'd have to go down to another hospital, which was about 2.5 hours away. And that's when they loaded.
Right. That's when they what?
That's when basically they said they were going to take me by ambulance. And I know I've talked to Tim about this, about ambulance rides, because he's been
Oh, man.
Well,
those are the bumpiest, roughest riding critters in the world.
Right. Well, they're trucks. They're trucks. That's why they ride rough.
It's funny. I had never been in an ambulance, until that night. And when we started off, I said, no, it can't be like this the whole way. And it only got worse.
Yep. But before there was someone appointed, healthcare professionals appointed a spokesman, and they were all lined up as you were being loaded up. Tell us about what happened there, and that ended up being the title of your book, also, of that incident. What happened there?
Yeah, before I left, when I was still in the emergency room, and they were getting me ready to go onto the gurney, everybody came into the room. There had to be 12 people in there, doctors, nurses, everybody. And one of the doctors stepped forward, and he says, I've been elected to speak for the group. And I kind of looked over at him, and he said, we've all decided we want to give you some money. And I thought, money? And I said, what do you mean, money? He says, well, we want you to buy us some lottery tickets. Because, and then he went on to explain, the bullet missing my heart by half an inch and blood loss and everything else. He says, it's a miracle that you're alive. We can't understand it, actually. And that's where I got the title for the book, was Winning Life's Lottery.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if anybody listening is a playwright and can write a script for a movie, I encourage you to get a copy of this book and turn it into a movie. That really needs to happen. Would you play yourself, Steve?
No, I don't think so. I'm not. Everybody has their niche in life, John, and I'm not an actor. That's for sure. So,
okay. All right. Well,
we'll get Brad Pitt to play him.
Well, I sometimes describe Steve as a somewhat civilized Crocodile Dundee. Not as rough around the edges as Crocodile, but a similar outlook on life, a tough guy, an outdoorsman, and so forth. And that's a compliment, Steve, in case you don't know. So you get to the second hospital, and another team starts to work on you, don't they?
Yeah, that I don't want to spoil too much of the book, but that was a whole other experience in that hospital. Them taking the bullet out of me and everything else, and then my hand, which was still wrapped, wasn't looked at until the next day, and that's when a specialized hand surgeon came in to look at it, and she was shocked that it was never cleaned or whatever. I was full of grease from working on a backhoe all day,
right?
And so anyway, when she unwrapped that in the hospital in my room, she looked at it, and I looked at it, and I says, "Oh boy!" I says, "Well," I told her, I says, "You might as well take that off right now because that's not any good." And because my finger, what was left of it, was probably 3 times, well, at least twice, maybe 2.5 times its normal size, and it was entirely black. Really like ink black. And she says, "Oh, she says this should have been cleaned." So right away, the wheels start turning, gangrene,
right,
the whole business.
Right, exactly, right.
And but anyway, she looked at it and she says, "Well," she says, "I don't have any time to schedule you for an operating room. Do you mind if I operate right here?" So I says, "Well, you do what you got to do, I guess."
It sounds like pretty impromptu. Like let's sort of carry out Chinese while we're at it, just kind of winging it, right?
Yeah, right. And she says, "I'll be right back." And so she ran out of the room, and she came back with an arm full of stuff. Okay, and all kinds of bandages, and she even had her eyeglasses, those magnifying glasses that people in the operating room, the surgeons, put on. And she, "We're going to do it right here." And so she did. She opened it up and took the pieces of bone out, ligaments, and pieces of nerve and whatever, and and believe me, that hurt a little bit. And
I bet.
So.
Well, Steve, didn't you tell me, buddy, that you never took any pain medicine the whole time?
Right. Through all this, I never had any pain medication, even when they dug the bullets out of me.
Wow. It was offered. And it was offered multiple times, wasn't it?
No, it was never offered, actually.
Oh, really?
It was only offered the last day when I was being discharged by the doctor, and he made me take a prescription. Right, and he made me take a prescription for OxyContin. And I told him, I said, "I haven't had anything since you're going to need it. Here, you're going to have to take this, and this prescription." And I said, "I don't want it." And he says, and then he leaned into me, and he looked at me, and he says, "You want to get out of here, don't you?" I go, "Well, yeah." He says, "Well, you're going to take this prescription then."
Uh-huh.
And then he wrote it. And he gave it to me. And when he walked out of the room, I crumpled it up and threw it in the trash.
Well, good for you. Good for you. Well, you didn't have the energy cleaner in the hospital, I don't believe, did you, Steve?
No, I didn't have it there, but I had it at home. That's for sure.
So you get home, and you're You were there how long before your first trip back to the hospital?
Well, I went back to the hand surgeon it was about 8-9 days later. And actually, she saw me that night, and it was 8-9 days later. And this is where it really gets kind of freaky, because when I got home from the hospital, naturally, and this is something I never was really aware of. I mean, I've shot deer and that kind of stuff, but I've never seen a human shot really this bad. I've seen gunshots on humans, but not this bad. When I took my shirt off and stood in the mirror, I went, oh my God. I mean, I had more colors on me, black, purple, yellow, all throughout my chest, my waist, shoulders. I mean, the trauma was tremendous. And but anyway, 8-9 days later, I went back, and I was on the energy cleaner that whole time. And when I got in the room, and the woman looked at my hand, she said, do you mind if I look at your other wounds while you're here? And I said, sure. And I took my shirt off, and she gasped. She couldn't believe it, because 80-90% of the blackness and the discoloration was gone.
Right.
I healed that fast.
In fact, she called in witnesses so she wouldn't be the Lone Ranger witnessing this, didn't she?
Exactly. I mean, she had to get 3-4 other nurses in to come in to look at it. She says, "Look at this. Can you believe it?" She says, "Look at. You remember what this guy looked like? I mean, I told you, about him." And she said, "Look at his discoloration's almost gone. He's almost healed." And they looked at me for like 10-15 minutes.
And there's a bonus, an unexpected bonus. Your lovely wife, who had been an aerobics instructor, she was diagnosed with lupus quite a few years ago, had to give up aerobics, which she loved. And what's the unexpected bonus involving your lovely wife?
Well, naturally, with it being on her bed, she was sleeping on it too. And about a year after that, we discovered that through her blood work that she had to have done, twice a year, that the lupus virus had disappeared. And, she never changed anything else, as far as diet or anything else. But lo and behold, she's lupus-free today, and she doesn't have to take the medication anymore. So it was an unbelievable bonus.
Well, and that's good. Now, is she back? What's her activities now? What's she doing?
Oh, she does her aerobics.
Okay.
She's back doing that, and she works full-time at the camp. She's back to being normal.
Well, we hear the story a lot where the energy cleaner helps people get their lives back, and your case saved their life. Now, Tim, I need to ask you, is Steve's first story he wrote still posted at your website at realsurvival.info?
Yeah, it sure is. And if people click on his name, which is under the list of authors on the right-hand side, there's a whole bunch of pictures of Steve and his webs and his fish camp and everything, tells everything about it. And I would encourage people to look at it. Absolutely beautiful photography done by somebody. So, that'd be a good place if people are interested in seeing what Steve actually lives like.
And a good introduction to Steve's writing to encourage people to buy Winning Life's Lottery and his other books. Here's our break. We'll be right back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Thursday, the 15th of February. Steve, it's always, no matter how many times you tell your story, there's always a small nuance, a small factoid that I didn't get the first time, or previous times, I should say. So what I'd like to do is have you on about once a month, because people need to hear your story because it is a fascinating story, and to give people hope that injuries they've suffered in the past can be relieved by the energy cleaner. And your next book, is it close to being finished?
Yes, it is. Actually, I'm closing it out right now, and I'll be doing the final editing and everything. One thing I didn't mention when I talked to you the other day, John, is about the condition of one of my friends. And I think we're going to be putting the energy cleaner to a new test, so to speak. This friend of mine, who's been a friend for almost 50 years now, unfortunately, he had a lower GI series done about 7 weeks ago. And that's where they give you the chalk substance to drink and whatever. Right. Well, anyway, he had that done, okay, and he, lo and behold, became severely constipated by it. Okay? Right. And eventually he forced himself to go to the bathroom. Right. And he ended up ripping his lower colon and his rectum.
Oh, okay? No.
Oh, yeah. And he's been suffering for 6 weeks, which I didn't know about. All right. He's got actual lesions and fissures in his lower colon, and they've even shoved or taken needles of Botox and tried to treat it, to heal it, and he won't heal. Okay. So the only thing now is he doesn't want to wait anymore, and this is before I got a hold of him, but he's scheduled to go into surgery tomorrow, okay? And they are going to cut some of the muscles down there to control that. And, if it goes right, fine, and if it does heal. If it doesn't go right, it means the bag for the rest of his life. Bag.
Scary stuff.
Scary stuff. So, anyway, my wife is actually meeting with the person today, and we're going to give him one of our energy cleaners, because we have 3 of them. And we're going to give him one, so when he gets out of the hospital on Friday, he's going to be sitting on that, all day. So hopefully it's going to help him. So
it'll be some help. Yeah, we can't say how much, obviously, but he'll get some relief and some healing. And let us know how that works out there, Steve, if you would, Steve.
Well, I'm thinking how it healed me. Okay, I mean, as far as the bullet holes and everything, and my wife has actually used it on a sprained ankle, and I've used it on some cuts, and it does enhance healing. So I'm hoping for the same for him.
Well, we'll be hoping and praying for an outcome there. Well, get Tim, and Tim, you're probably going to want to interview Steve on your show also, and Tim's show is Saturday.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so get us review copies of the book, so we can read it and interview about the new book. I'm looking forward to it. Reading is one of my passions, and I'll go back to work again to read your book. And you get it right. I'm a very critical reader, and there's very small details, tiny. I only caught one tiny detail that you missed in that last book, and it was very minor by comparison to the overall size of the book. So we're looking forward to that and having you back on sometime in March, Steve.
Okay, very good. I look forward to it.
Outstanding. Tim, any follow-up? Tell people when your show is so they'll know.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, Lori and I, my wife, we have a show right here on RBN every Saturday from 10 a.m. till noon Central. We'd love for you to call in, love for you to listen to the show. Think you'll enjoy it, especially if you have any interest in gardening or something.
Outstanding. Steve and Tim, thank you, gentlemen. It was a great show, and appreciate it. All right, that's it for the day. Get your medical supplies, your energy cleaner, your essential oils now while you can, your firearms ammunition. Never ever give up your guns. Have a fun, safe, productive day, and God bless America.